some people are probably concerned that the film is going to be really graphic or really difficult to watch. I think you'll find I think you'll find watching it that it's not graphic. Obviously, it's difficult subject matter, and so there are going to be difficult scenes. And but I hope you sit through those and watch the rest of it. Just a quick question here: is there anybody in the audience who has worked with animals in a laboratory or who currently works with animals in a laboratory? So yeah, anybody who has worked with animals in labs or who currently works with animals in labs, I want you to have first crack at me after the film. So please stick around for the Q&A, and I hope we can talk about what you watch. Okay, thanks. I'm also really glad that you brought that up, and I hope that all of you noticed in the film that it's not set up like a debate. You don't hear from people who are like pro animal testing, and then you cut to an activist person who has like an emotional argument, and then you cut. It doesn't go back and forth in like a debate kind of way that a lot of documentaries do, and not because I don't think that that's a good way to frame the argument, but because I really wanted to, I'm not a scientist. I don't come from a science background. When I read something about scientific alternative, I don't think to myself, oh yes, I'm 100% convinced of this. I think to myself, that sounds like a whole bunch of science that I don't understand. I'll take the scientists' word for it when they say, yes, we have alternatives and it's great. I think that's awesome, but I've been making films for a long time, and I consider myself a storyteller more than an activist or an academic. So I wanted to just focus on the stories of people who have been there firsthand and give them just lots of room to tell their stories. Sometimes their stories talked about alternatives, but most of the time they didn't. And the whole issue of research alternatives and all the science and the figures and statistics and all that stuff, that's like a whole other series of films that could be made about that. I think that you're probably right, that's going to be one of the things that shifts the issue. But I also think one of the things that's going to shift the issue is a culture shift within within scientific and biomedical research in general. It's going to be a culture shift from within where individual scientists and groups of scientists at institutions say, we can do better than this. We can do this without using animals, and that's more where I was coming from. I think, I have gotten some of that, and I think those critiques totally, they make sense, and I understand where they come from, and it's not, I really didn't enter into making this film to be I'm gonna enter into the debate. It's really not, I'm really not trying to have a debate with anybody. And it's not because I don't think the debate's important. I think it's important, but I've had that debate a lot. I've been a soldier, and I've done I've thrown my body on the gears of that debate many times, and it's just boring to me now because I don't feel I feel like I've had that conversation many times and no one walks away with any new information. It's just kind of you listen to each other have angry words and then you walk away and you're mad. So I wanted the film to be more nuanced and something a bit different than a thing that inspires that kind of reaction. It's going to inspire that reaction anyway. And while I was making the film, my dad had prostate cancer, and Movember was going on. It's Movember now, and most prostate cancer research that's done in North America is done on dogs, and I don't think people really know that, or if they do know that, they don't care, or if they do know that and they care, they don't participate, but they're quiet about it because it's not cool to say that supporting like, it's a controversial position to say, like, I don't support animal research. Yes, my family member had cancer and I still don't support it. My dad's prostate cancer is not a dog's problem. Yeah, I mean, I think those questions are natural and they're common, but I'm not trying to have that debate. And you know, what you were saying earlier about like feeling, you know, having a new perspective on like people who participate in the research, like I've actually had kind of like the flip side of the coin where people have said like, didn't you find it really hard to like talk to these people and like, you know, like hear their point of view? And I was like, no. Like, I was honored that they felt like they trusted me enough to come to me and talk to me about their experiences, because their experiences are really heavy. And they don't get respect. They don't get respect in their industry. They don't get, you know, getting support from their family was often really difficult because this is their career. And one of the people who appears in the film, at the time that I interviewed him, he was still doing animal research. He's the guy who talks about working on rats. And he had worked for a decade in the pharmaceutical industry. And he had post-traumatic stress. And he found out about the film and he contacted me. And he's like, I have post-traumatic stress. I'm doing this work. We're about to enter into like a new study with monkeys. Like, I feel really messed up about this. And this was like a really interesting moment for me because like I used to do the angry thing. Like I used to be the angry guy, and I'm still the angry guy in some ways, but like I used to really put that on and be like, you know, I used to be that. But here was like a guy who's coming to me. He's an animal researcher. I'm an animal rights activist. Like, how messed up of a situation does he have to be in to come to me and be like, I need help, right? So I didn't tell him what to do. Like, I didn't say, you got to leave this because it's evil and blah, blah, blah. I was just like, yeah, tell me about your story. And that sounds really hard. And, you know, if you want to like debrief after like telling your wife about this, like we can Skype about it after or whatever. And the fact that he trusted me enough after that to like have his story in the film, I feel like is like I don't really care about anything else that happens after that. Like that was, to me, I was like, okay, cool, it's done. Like I feel good about it now. So. So a lot of the footage was shot by me or by people that I know directly. Some of the footage was, shall we say, like gifted to me by, let's say, people that I don't know, who had an interest in making sure that that particular footage got into the right hands, and I was able to use that as I saw fit. Knowing the context of it and all of that. Some of the footage that I shot personally. So in the first chapter, the whole beginning sequence is like a series of shots within like an abandoned laboratory, or what seems like an abandoned laboratory. That is a place that's now completely shut down. At the time I filmed there, it was mid-2011. It was a place once upon a time called the Colston Foundation. They used to do biomedical research and military research for the US government on chimpanzees, dogs, rats. And I was able to film there for 2 days in 2011. I was given permission to film there by Save the Chimps, which is an organization that in the early 2000s, bought the Colston Foundation. The Colston Foundation was going under. They bought the Colston Foundation and all the chimpanzees in it and said, you're retired now. You're never going to have another test done to you. You're safe now. And over the next several years, many years, they moved those chimps from that environment to a giant sanctuary in Florida. So I spent a couple days there. It wasn't like an investigative shoot. There are a bunch of investigative shoots there. But it was a significant shoot because like I'm not like a woo-woo kind of like energy person or whatever. Like I don't get really caught up in that. But like when I was there, I had I had a nightmare that night. I stayed over in the office there, which was maybe a bad idea. But I had a nightmare that night about like Frederick Colston like showing me around the grounds and telling me that everything was fine, what happened there, and seeing like used equipment, like equipment that actually has like wear and tear on it from being used on animals was extremely intense. And so that's one of the shoots. Another shoot that I participated in was gathering the footage from the monkey farms in Laos. Myself and members of the crew of the film went to Laos in late 2012, and under the guise of being exotic animal dealers, we went and negotiated with a bunch of different monkey farms trying to get access to film, saying that we needed a bunch of monkeys for research, but they were also, the way that we told them we were going to film it was, we also buy monkeys for movies, and we're making a movie, and it's going to be like a Planet of the Apes thing, so we need to show how they look on camera, which surprisingly worked. And we were able to get footage of monkeys that way in monkey farms, which are used to breed monkeys for the worldwide research industry. So that was another really intense shoot. And those are, there are a lot of different ways that kind of footage is obtained, but that was a couple of them. There are two people who appear in the film who really got the ball rolling and gave me the idea of this as an idea. One is Isabel, who appears in that first section, and she's discussing working with chimpanzees and how she's young and she's very desensitized. I interviewed her in 2010 before the film was really an idea at all. And it was very haphazard how it happened, but I found her story really affecting. And then a couple weeks after I talked to her, I used to host a radio show in Toronto called Animal Voices. And a couple weeks later, I was interviewing Dr. John Pippin, who's also in the film, because he works a lot on research alternatives, actually. And I was interviewing him about a conference that was happening about alternatives. And it just sort of came up, and I said, like, oh, you're a cardiologist, like, have you ever worked with animals? And have you ever, taken part in animal research to do your training? And he went into this really intense story about, working in a dog, like, doing his research on dogs and having the same kinds of dogs at home, and how much it led to this kind of crisis for him. And it sounds really weird and kind of ignorant to say, but it was really at that moment that I was like, wow, there's two people who have had this experience. And I was like, maybe there's three, And I got, like, after I finished the radio show that day, like, I called my friend and I was like, I think I have an idea. And so that was how the idea for the film came about. I'm the same person that I was when I started making it, but just much more desensitized to a lot of things, because it was a really long, it was a pretty long process of shooting the film, and then a long process of editing it. And while I was editing the film, like, I do contract work for other animal rights organizations, so, at the same time that I was editing this, I was editing, like, pig farm investigations or other things like that, where I'm watching hours and hours of footage. And it's like, when people ask me if it's a graphic film, I'm kind of like, I don't know. It doesn't feel graphic to me anymore. It all feels really technical, because I edited it and I kind of have that technical experience of it, of just like, okay, cut 6 frames here and put another 2 seconds here or whatever. which is maybe a sad thing to hear, but it helps me do it. I have other projects that I'm working on right now that are not animal related at all. There's a weird electronic musician in Toronto that I'm trying to convince to be in a weird documentary. I don't know. It'll be fun. I can't wait, actually. So part of the reason that I focused on the types of animals that I did in the film was that I was able to find individual stories of animals that that had been in labs that I could profile. Rabbits would have been great. They're widely used in cosmetics testing. They're also widely used in biomedical testing. But I wasn't able to get a profile together of a rabbit story. And it just felt like I really wanted the film to be grounded in experiences, not just abstract. I think there's 2 stats in the whole movie. I really didn't want it to be about numbers and it just up here. I wanted it to be really a grounded experiential story. So yeah, that was, there's some rabbit footage in there, but it's, it's minimal. Yeah. So to answer the first part of your question, I really have never done well in my life when people tell me what to do or what I should do. It's a character flaw of mine. When people tell me what to do, I'm no, I'll do the opposite of that. My parents being why would you make films? I'm okay, I'll make films. I don't tell people that they should do this or they shouldn't do that because it doesn't work for me, and I don't want to do that. But animal research is a really interesting issue in terms of social change because it's not veganism a lot of times gets reduced to just buy the right thing. You just buy the right food or buy the right shoes or whatever. It's the same thing with environmentalism, right? If you just buy the right light bulb, then everything's good, right? Buying stuff is good. Light bulbs are good. We should just buy the right ones. So that's kind of what happens with animal rights a lot, and it's annoying. But the interesting thing about animal research is that, yes, you can buy cosmetics that are not tested on animals, or you can choose not to use medicine that's tested on animals, and that's an admirable thing to do if you're into that. But there's a huge amount of animal research that happens that it doesn't matter. I can have all the angry feelings I want about it, but it's not going to affect it. And I can spend my money in different places, and it's really not going to matter. So that was something that I kind of came to realize as I was making the film, and I don't want to pretend that that's why I made the film, but I feel when I talk about the culture shift happening from within the industry, I really do think that a large part of the change around animal research has to happen from within, and I think it's important to plant the seeds in that culture to say, because these conversations don't really happen in in biomedical faculties or biology departments or science institute. These conversations just don't happen, or they happen in a really quiet way, on the in whispers. And again, I'm not interested in telling people what to do, and I don't think that's a productive way to go about things, but I think the more that this conversation can happen, and that's why I asked if there were people who had done research on animals before, because I want to talk to them. I don't want to yeah, I want to talk to you too, but like I really want to have that conversation because I'm not a scary person and they're not scary to me. We're all just like messy people trying to like live messy lives. And, you know, I think that the more that that conversation can happen in that industry, the more things are going to change. So I know that's a really slow and kind of like boring, like, you know, we should go out and smash or whatever, and go and do that too. But like, it's gonna take it's gonna take a lot of different like hammers chipping away at the wall to like break it down. But a large part of it is going to be like people from the inside pushing the wall over. The repetitive looping music that you hear at the beginning of the film and at the end of the film, that's an artist from Toronto who calls himself Weird Visions. When I was having the initial idea for the film, I was listening to his album on repeat, just like I was listening to that music over and over. And it's actually not, it sounds like it's just skipping or something, like it's looping, but his songs are actually like 12 or 15 minutes long. They just go on like that. And I find them really cinematic, and it helped me to kind of picture things unfolding. And I know that it's interesting, people either really love the music, like they love it and they want to tell me how much they love it, or they want to tell me how much they can't stand it. And that makes me feel great. And actually, I'm glad that you brought that up because there's actually music or sound, ambient noise or something through the whole film. There's no, there's not a, that to me artistically, that was what I thought was awesome. You know, honestly, it really wasn't, like Brian, who, okay, so there's two people who worked on the music. One is like a guy who, he had already had the music ready, and I just kind of like bought some from him. I was like, can I use some of this in the film? I'll pay you a fee or whatever, and he allowed me to do that. But then I had my friend Brian, who I've collaborated with on numerous occasions on short films. I just asked him to compose music because I love what he does. He does really soundscapey, kind of beautiful stuff, what I think is beautiful. And the music wasn't there to... One of the things that I really despise about cinema in general is like when you feel like the music is telling you how to feel. Like when it goes into the Disney ending and it's like ba 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 ba, and you're like, oh, it's so great that they are in love and whatever. And it's just like, it's amazing sometimes if you watch a film on mute, you just have no idea what to feel. You're just like, this looks like, I don't know what I'm looking at anymore. And I hate the manipulation that happens with music. And so a lot of the music, I mean, I know people have reactions to it, but if you listen to a lot of the music on its own, it's very neutral. And some of it is a bit on the dark side, but some of it is, I think in a lot of ways, what people are saying colors the music more than the music colors what they're saying. And that was a lot of my instruction to Brian, was just like, keep it neutral. Like, I don't want to hear like weird, sinister dips or anything. I just want to just like keep it even and neutral. And I think he did that, and I'm really thankful for it. One of the phrases that really annoys me right now is when people like are doing like social media campaigns and they say like, join the conversation, like, because it's just annoying and you hear it all the time. But you know, I really wanted the film to be more of a call to a conversation, not a didactic like tell us, you know, telling people what to do or what to do with the information. I really just want. I think if we have the space to honestly talk about the psychological and the physical and the ethical fallout of animal research, that will push things in a different direction more quickly. Yeah, thanks.